A long time ago, I read this really interesting story. It was extremely simple, very basic, right? But yet, it had a very powerful message behind it. It was about mice that were trapped in a maze. And all of them, they just kept on running around, round and round in circles, right? Without really thinking that there was anything more to that maze, right? And that there was life outside of it. But there was this one mouse, right? And it was different. So uh, eventually it started to try and dig its way out of the maze, right? And so it did. Okay. All the other mice, they thought that this mouse was extremely crazy, and some even tried to stop it. But the mouse was extremely persistent, and eventually it found its way out and freed itself. Anyway, and that's, I believe that our society is, it works the same way as this maze. A lot of us, when we're born into an existing system, right? It's a system of, I would say, slavery. And if you um, if you buy into the conditioning of this system, then you will eventually become like the rest of these mice. Okay, you will just be running around in circles, stuck in the rat race, right? And you'll think that there is all that is to it, to this life, okay? And there's not, okay? There's absolutely a lot more to it, to this life, than what you were sold, okay? And that's exactly, guys, what we're gonna talk about in this video, okay? I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna talk about jobs in particular, okay? And why getting a job is like the worst thing that you'll ever do, basically, okay, for yourself and for your life. The conditioning starts with your parents, okay? And I'm sure they mean well, right? But when you're someone who is already conditioned, brainwashed to think in a certain way, then and you've never questioned that conditioning, then you're more likely to pass this conditioning off and start conditioning your own children, right? Your own offspring. And that's exactly what happens for the most part, right? Is that, brainwashed, they don't know that they're brainwashed, and without even meaning to or without realizing it, once they have children, they tend to pass on their mindset to their own children, right? So it all starts in school, right? Or it all starts when you become a teen, right? So your job, I mean, your parents tell you to get a job, right? And you know little do they realize that a job is actually, most jobs are just another form of slavery, basically, right? You'll be slaving away your time, the most precious thing that you have, right? Your energy, uh, without getting too much in return, right? So a job, it stands for just over broke, right? And it's very, very true, okay, guys. And you would think that just because perhaps you'll get a higher education, right? And you'll get a master's degree, right? So your income will increase, right? Okay, that might be true, but you're not thinking about your taxes, okay? So the highest earning people, right, that work for corporations, they are also the highest, the folks that are going to be paying the most in taxes too, okay? So just because your income potential has increased and you went out there and got a master's degree, right, doesn't mean that you'll be seeing a lot more money, basically, okay? Yes, you might be making more money, but you might also be stuck with more student loans, right, if you're in America, and higher taxes too, right? Anyway, there's that, right? But now, you guys, I just want to talk to you about the conditioning, right? Like I said, we're gonna go back to the conditioning, right? The conditioning starts very, very early. I would say, like right in the beginning, right? As soon as kids are old enough to understand, right? As soon as kids are old enough, right? Their parents start talking to them about jobs and work, right? Perhaps they start talking about their own jobs and how, making money in order to make a living, right, or make money to pay for things, you need to get a job. Basically, the conditioning starts there, okay? And it continues, right, until the kiddo is old enough to get a job, right? And that's all that they will know, right? They don't the parents don't talk about alternatives, right, for the most part, as most of us have been conditioned to believe that we all need jobs, right? It's a requirement. We need it to survive, right? We need a job to earn, right, to earn money. But of course, nowadays, right, because there's so many different opportunities out there, right, because there's the internet, right, which allows us to work from anywhere. First of all, right, it gives us the freedom to create systems, right? It gives us the freedom to basically to have alternatives besides a job, right? Maybe back in the day, right, there were less opportunities, right? And maybe getting a job was, for the most part, or for most people, it was something that was kind of unavoidable, right? But nowadays, because of so many different, like I said, because of the internet, right? Um, we we can we can do other things, okay? So, like I said, right from the start, right, as soon as you're old enough to understand a little bit more, right, even as a young kid, your parents start the conditioning, right? They start telling you that you'll need a job in order to make money, right? But that's not necessarily true, right? Like I said, there are many ways, especially nowadays because of the internet. There are many ways to make a living, right? And it doesn't have to be through a formal job, right? Or finding like a specific employer, right? And getting hired by them, okay? This is just one way of making a living, right? There are many, many, many different ways nowadays because of the internet, right? Because of the service economy, right? Because of like things like Uber, right? Um, you can you can kind of you can make a living doing something like that while or at least supplementing your income, right, while pursuing what you're truly passionate about, right? I've met, I remember when I used to take Uber a lot, right? I used to meet people that were supplementing their income like this all the time, right? And they had jobs, or they were working for themselves, right, while also driving Uber. So that's I think that's a great way of going about it, right? And That's because I believe, I've been a self-employed, or I've been a freelancer for a long time now, right? And and I've had jobs in the past, right? And really, I would say that there are downsides to, there are positives and negatives to both, right? To being a freelancer, for example, everything has a bad and a good side, right? Always, right? And so, of course, being a freelancer, right, you also have your negatives too, right? But I believe the negatives just there aren't as many negatives as there are positives to being your own boss, okay? And I believe uh, by being your own boss, right, or by doing freelancing work, you tend to gain a lot more positive inner qualities, okay? And that's huge, okay? So yeah, but I will probably make a separate video where I talk about those positives, right? In this video, we're just going to talk about having a job, right? Anyway, so let's go back to having a job, right? Like I said, we've been conditioned that getting a job is the only solution, right? To making a living, to and so, most of us have fallen for it, right? A lot of us have gone into school, and a lot of us have, once we finished high school, we, got a higher education, right? And I just remember sitting in business school, right? And I knew at the time, right, that I was torn, right? I almost went into medical school, or I wanted to become a doctor, right? And I was torn because I have a family where there are a lot of like doctors and nurses in my family, right? So I guess maybe it's in my blood. I'm not sure. But, I was torn. I was really interested in that field, right? So I was really torn between going to business school, right, and becoming a doctor, because I knew that ultimately wanted to work for myself, and I wanted to do my own thing. I kind of realized very early on that getting a job wasn't the answer, right? Because I started working when I was 10, right? And I was always kind of very independent, and because I started working so early on, I've gotten a glimpse of what it was like to work for other people, right? And what it was like to work for myself, right? So basically, when I was 10, I started working as like a girl who like, well, a girl. I started working as someone who sold coupons, right? It was this like booklet of like really cheesy coupons, right, that gave people discounts, and I started selling them door to door, right? And anyways, I started making, like, I would say, a lot of money for a 10-year-old, right? I think I made like $100 per day, right? And I wasn't working the entire day. I would say I worked for maybe like 4 or 5 hours or something. I don't know, but I worked after school, right? And this van would drive us, to all these different neighborhoods, right? Where we would go door to door and try to sell these coupons. Anyways, Americans, I discovered, were extremely generous for the most part, and they would just like see this little 10-year-old, right? And they would just give me like money, and they would tell me that they didn't need the booklet. And so I was like, no, no, please keep it, right? But they didn't care about the coupons. They would just give me money basically, for the most part, like not always, right? But people were just really, really generous, and because they saw like a working kid, I guess, they were very kind, right? And so yeah, that's how I started making, like, I would say, a lot of money, right? For a 10-year-old, right? And it wasn't your typical job, right? But still, I had to give a portion of my money away, right, to someone who drove us, right? And so there was that, right? So it's kind of like having a job, right? You're not necessarily self-employed yet, right? But it was kind of like a glimpse into the self-employment, right? And into freelancing. Then I had other jobs. I had various jobs, and I worked in like restaurants, and I worked for Chuck E. Cheese's, and that was terrible. Oh my goodness. I just I really disliked it, and I will tell you, I will get into why, right, a little bit on in this video, right? Anyway, so yes, so for most of my life, I've been fairly independent, right, and I've had a lot of different jobs, right, and I've tried like every job that there is, basically, guys, and the reason being is because. I believe we have to try different things in order to understand what they're like, because in theory everything is completely different, right? And that then in comparison to reality, right? So things are very different when you actually start doing them, right? And that's what I learned too. So I tried many different jobs and I didn't like most of them. Of course, I liked certain aspects of them, right? But most of them were not for me. And that's what I think you have to do, right? You have to soul search. Um, you have to try different things in order to see whether you like them or not, right? And I believe some of us do actually end up in particular fields, right? And we just get stuck in them. And despite not liking them, right, or hating our jobs, we like in bad relationships, right? Because a work relationship is a relationship, right? We just get stuck in these poor relationships, right? Whether romantic or work, right? And we just never get out, basically, right? And I think that's a huge issue, because your work is everything, right? And having work that you absolutely despise and hate, and that you have to be in for most of your life, right, is the worst thing that you can possibly do to yourself. Okay, it takes too much emotional energy out of you, right? And emotional energy is just as important, if not more important, than the money, right? The funds. There's this cost, right, that you're paying without really even realizing it, right? You're paying the emotional cost, which ultimately takes the financial or your finances away from you too. And I will explain why, okay, a little bit later on. Okay, guys, so I'm going to talk about why getting a job is ultimately the worst thing that you can ever do, okay? First of all, right, once I got a job, right, like my real job, my very first like real job, and I've had many before that, like I was a manager, right, and so on, right. And I've had other jobs, right, before getting this real like corporate job, where I would say it was a position that I got after graduating, right, from my university, and after moving to San Francisco, right. So I was a business developer, right. And I'm not gonna name the corporation, right, but it was a medium-sized company. Actually, their main office was in San Francisco, right? Anyways, and that's where I worked, right? And so I was a business developer there, right? And I quickly learned that just like in high school, right? The corporate world is basically like high school. Um, right, where we've all received our conditioning, right? And like, for example, most of us had to wear uniforms, right? And in your job, you'll have to wear a uniform, right? You'll have to come in looking a certain way. Of course, in San Francisco, that's a bit different, right? But still, I would say that yes, San Franciscans, right, or people that work in tech, right? Okay, yeah, they don't wear tuxedos to work. They wear t-shirts, right? But ultimately, if you're not like them, right, uh, they will, for the most part, reject you. They're still looking for someone that's like them, someone that fits into that geeky like stereotype, right? And if you don't fit into that geeky stereotype when you have an interview with one of those companies, then they will probably not hire you. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're wearing a t-shirt or you're wearing a tuxedo, right? It's all the same, honestly, right? So it's um, it's just their uniform is a different type of a uniform, okay? And that's what we've been conditioned to be in, right? To be like a uniform that stands for in one form, right? So in one form means that you're going to have to be like everyone else, okay? Otherwise you will not fit in, you'll be a misfit, right? And someone who wants to work at a corporate setting, I quickly learned that you have to be like everyone else, okay? If you have a certain type of a diet, right, or if you're eating a certain way, for example, while I was eating healthy, I noticed that most of my coworkers were not eating healthy. They were eating pizza, they were eating cookies, and they were eating junk food, right? And I wasn't. So that quickly, just my eating habits made me an automatic outcast, okay? Of course, by eating healthy, I made other people feel bad about themselves, right? And so they automatically started to justify themselves, right? And so yeah, that was like the first strike against me, is that it's my eating habits, right, that I had. And then yeah, so there's that, right? While you're working at a corporate setting, just like in high school, if you don't fit in with a particular clique, right? And I quickly discovered that most companies, most corporations, they have these particular cliques, right? And if you don't fit into that clique, you become an outcast. You become the person who is more likely to get bullied by other people, right? And so that was the case with me also. The girl that started training me, she quickly learned that I was fairly intelligent, right? And she got threatened, right? And because of that, she started to make my position, my life very, very difficult. She started bullying me, sitting basically like in the back of me and just telling me that I'm not doing this right, I'm not doing that right, and to hurry up, right? And basically, I just kind of I started feeling like I was being too pressured. I was being, you know. Like someone was constantly looking over my shoulder, right? And that just put me into a position where I was constantly stressed out, right? And so, as you know, our brains don't work as well when we're stressed out, right? We just kind of go into this panic mode, right? And we forget everything, right? So this is kind of like what happened to me also, right? I was just constantly stressed out when she was there. I remember we had a company event where she completely, the girls in the group, right? They just completely excluded me. Everyone was invited to like a girls' event or a girls' night, and I was completely excluded, even though I was completely new to the company, right? Anyway, so that was also like the start of like it gave me a glimpse of what was to come, right? And so yeah, like I said, right, because I was different, because I had my own beliefs, I had my own ways of doing things, because I didn't want to fit in necessarily, right? I was bullied, I was excluded, I was treated differently, basically, okay? So yes, you're going to have to be like in high school. You're going to have to be in one form in order to fit in a corporation. Okay, so it's not really just about, it's not necessarily about your work. Okay, it's you're going to have to probably lie. You're going to have to pretend to be someone you're not, in order to fit in with everyone else. Otherwise, you're going to become a threat, and you're probably not going to last very long at a company. Okay, so in other words, you're going to have to compromise who you are the majority of your time. You're going to have to pretend to be someone you're not. You're going to have a mask on, in order to keep that living, right? Keep that salary, keep those benefits, right? So is it really worth it at the end, right? Just ask yourself, is me compromising myself, my integrity, my true self, who I am, my essence, is it worth it in order to get that paycheck that's not even fully yours, right? You're gonna work a lot, right? And you're also going to be pressured to work a lot more than you want to also, right? So that's another thing that, like, I noticed, right, is that they say it's a 9 to 5 position, right? But no, actually it's not. You're going to have to stay later than that, and you're not going to get paid for it. Okay, so yeah, there's also that, right? Because there's always going to be this one person who is going to work extra hard, right, in the company, and they're probably gonna do overtime just because, right? So because they want to get promoted, for example, right? So because of that one person, another person is gonna feel pressured to stay, and then it's going to be kind of like a chain reaction, right? So maybe the other people will be motivated by fear, right? If I leave, right, earlier, or if I leave on time, then I might get fired, right? So I think other people will be motivated by fear. They're going to be afraid to be fired, so they're gonna stay over time. They're gonna stay longer than they really want to, right? So basically, at the end of the day, right, you're gonna get home really late. You're gonna have energy for nothing, right? And that's the really big issue too, right? There's going to be no life work balance, right? So yeah, and if you add to it a job or a position that you absolutely despise and that you hate, right? And if you're getting bullied on top of it, right, or you're not getting along with some of your coworkers, then that's really going to make you suffer in every way, right? You might have the finances, but emotionally you're going to be and even physically you're gonna start getting very sick, right? You're gonna be emotionally and spiritually depleted. Okay, your soul is going to be crying. Honestly, guys, ultimately it's another way of selling your soul too. Okay, because you're selling your essence, you're selling your beliefs, your morals, your honesty for a paycheck. Okay, guys, so another thing, right, is that ultimately you're going to make a lot less money, okay? Like I said, the higher your education, so the more educated that you are, right, and the more that you'll get paid, the more you'll have to pay taxes, the more in taxes that you'll have to pay, okay, the more money. So there's that, right? And also there's the fact that you're giving away most of your money, okay? You're giving away most of your money, and you're just getting like a small portion of the pie, basically, right? Your company is profiting from your labor, okay? You're working, right, and you're working very hard probably in order to keep your job, right, while your corporation is profiting from that labor, okay? So it's your CEOs who are getting paid the most, right? And also, guys, one thing that you will probably never hear in business school, right? Or while you're getting your degree, is that most of the things that you will learn in business school, right, you will never get to use. And the reason why, and especially if you're a woman, right? If you're a woman, as a woman, there's the glass ceiling, right? So the glass ceiling is something that prevents women into moving into top positions or management positions in companies just because you are a woman, okay? That's one thing, right? And even if you aren't a woman, maybe you're a man, right? If it's a big corporation, especially if it's a bigger corporation, chances of you becoming, moving to the top, chances of you, even if you work extra hard, chances of you moving up and becoming like a higher end executive are extremely slim. Okay, they're almost non-existent because you already have the CEOs, right? You already have the CFOs, right? You already have people in those positions, and chances of them losing their jobs or going away, or of them some of something happening to them, are very, very slim, right, too. So there are very few openings for this particular position, right? Of course things happen, and that position might open up, but do you know how many other people want the same position as you do? A lot, most people in the company, right? Or at least half of them, right? Um, so yeah, there's also that, right? So you know, getting depending on the company, right? Um, Especially if it's a big corporation, chances of you getting a higher end position are very, very slim. They're almost non-existent, and especially if you're a woman, right, or a minority. So there's that, right? And like I said, there's also the fact that the corporation will be profiting from your labor, okay? Instead of you keeping all the money, right? The corporation takes most of the money. On top of that, the government is taxing you, right? So you're left with almost nothing. At the end of the day, you're left with almost nothing, right? And if you're living in a city that's expensive, such as San Francisco, right? Then your income is going to just your your standard of living, right? Or your rent is going to be eating away most of your money, okay? So at the end of the day, you're going to be left with almost nothing. Okay, guys, another reason why having a job is like the worst thing that you can do, especially if it's a job that you hate, okay? Is that and most people do not like their work, okay? They're doing it out of fear. They're doing it because they think it's something that they have to do, and that there's no way out, right? It's something that they're stuck in, right? And trust me, guys, a lot of us are stuck in our jobs, okay? We're stuck in doing something that we hate because, right? We kind of dug ourselves into this position, into this hole, right? By taking out a lot of loans, right? By getting really expensive places and having a lease, right? Or having a contract, right? By by doing things that we couldn't afford in the first place, right? So getting a job and being stuck in it, eh, in doing being stuck in doing something that you hate will cost you. It will cost you emotionally, okay? Because every day you're going to be going in, right? That's why most people hate Mondays, right? And there's like even a meme about that, right? Like, oh, Monday, right? That's why most people love Fridays, right? Because they're doing something that they absolutely hate, and they don't even want to do it, but they feel like they have to, right? Because they dug themselves into this hole. Maybe it's a guy, right, that has a family to support also, right? So maybe he's paying for all of them, right? So he's also like, he feels like he's stuck, right? Anyways, guys, all I can tell you is that for the most part, I think most of us get ourselves into this position, right? And most of it, yes, you are stuck because of all of your responsibilities, right? Um, but um, but there's also a way to get unstuck, right? Just because we're also mentally stuck, for the most part, a lot of us also get very mentally stuck, right? We tell ourselves, no, we there's no way we can get out, right? So really getting unstuck from a position or from a job that you hate is a lot of it is really mental. It's what you tell yourself, right? So if you want to get unstuck, right, try to write down the things that you can do in order to get unstuck, right? This will really really help you, right? And there are many things you can do, right? But of course it's probably not going to happen right away. It's going to take some time for you to kind of untangle yourself, right? If you got tangled, you just have to find a way to get untangled and to get unstuck, right? And to get out of a bad situation that you're in, right? So it will take time, it will take effort, it will take energy. It's not going to happen right away, probably, right? Realistically speaking, but it can be done, yeah, if you really, really want to. So none of us are really, really absolutely stuck in any particular situation, okay? Unless maybe you're like in jail, right? Or something. And we're not going to go into that, right? But so yeah, there's always like a way to get out, right? You just have to really want it bad enough, right? And so yes, anyways, so back to the emotional part of this, right, guys? So ultimately, your job is costing you a lot. It's costing you your emotional energy, right? The stress that comes with doing something that you despise, the stress that comes with maybe commuting, right? Maybe your job is really, really far away, right? The stress that comes with knowing that you don't have any energy for the things that you do love to do, right? And not even having enough time um, to recharge yourself emotionally, to go to the gym, right? To work on your hobbies, right? For the most part, the way that it goes is that you work until it's almost nighttime, and then you come home and you go to sleep. You eat some junk food, or I don't know, you don't have any energy to cook. You eat something that's probably not even good for you, and then you have to repeat the same cycle until it's Friday, right? And by the time that Friday arrives, you're so worn out emotionally, not necessarily physically, right? That you you need the 2 days to recuperate, right, or to recharge, right, mentally and emotionally, and even that is not even enough, right? So and then you have to repeat this draining activity all over again, right? And so guys, that's what having a job that you dislike, that's what it ultimately comes down to, okay? So is the paycheck, right? Ask yourself, is the paycheck really worth it? In most cases, it's not, and that's because of the emotional payment that you'll have to pay, okay? Most people don't think about the emotional side of things, right? Things that but it's not just the physical, right? It's not just the financial, right? There's also the emotional bank that you have to consider too, okay? And you can think of it as a bank too, right? There's the financial bank, right, where you have money or you don't have money, and I don't know, it's like a balance. You have to keep that balance, right? You have to have enough money for bills and food and such, right? And there's the emotional bank too that you have to consider, okay? And believe it or not, okay, our emotional bank gets depleted very very fast, right? And it has to be recharged, and you have to recharge it by doing the things that make you happy, the things that you enjoy doing, the things that are good for your soul, right? And trust me, like mothers, fathers with kids, they learn about the emotional bank very quickly. Okay, guys, and I'm going to talk about now I'm going to talk about the fact that you would think that why does job stand for just over broke? Because, guys, a job, okay, that you hate, you'll end up, first of all, paying a lot in taxes, right? Um, then also you will pay in terms of emotions, right? So if you're doing something that you dislike, um, if you resent the fact that you have to be at work um, longer than you should, if maybe you're not getting along with some of the coworkers, if you constantly have to pretend to be someone that you're not, right? Um, then you're going to end up being very emotionally depleted, right? And because you're going to be so emotionally depleted, you're more likely to spend any leftover money that you have. And the reason being is because often, guys, first of all, people buy into the consumerism, right? We're brainwashed into buying, 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 right? But also because when um, people buy things, right, it makes them feel good, right? It releases feel good hormones, which which kind of like it's basically another way as like self meditating, okay? And so, because you're feeling bad about your job, you're going to probably spend all the money that you're making anyways, okay, in order to compensate for having a job that you dislike, okay? Because shopping makes you feel good, right? So, so that's that's why like a lot of people who make a lot of money, for example, um, they also just end up parting with that money very, very quickly because of the emotional compensation that they have to do, okay? In order to not feel bad about having a job that they do, okay? Or in order to compensate for the lack of positive emotions, right? Okay, guys, so one last thing that I'm going to mention, right, is that you might get stuck in very unfulfilling work and doing something that's completely repetitive, right, and that's not going to fulfill you at all, right? So you never really know what you're going into, right? When I signed up or when I got the business developer job, right? I didn't know necessarily what I was signing up for. I just had like a general overall overview of the job description, right? But I didn't know the insides of the company just yet, right? Because I never worked there, right? So you don't know the insides of the company. You don't know their processes. You don't know the information that you're going to be working with and so on, right? And so I just had like a very general idea of what I was going to be doing, right? And then when I actually started doing it, it was freaking boring, man. Like it was so boring. It became repetitive, right? And while there was, to an extent, there was a lot to learn, right? But the information that I was learning was just completely like, it didn't interest me whatsoever, right? So you might get stuck with something like this, okay? You might get stuck with something that you don't want to learn, right? And when we don't want to learn something, guys, it does not come easily, okay? I also realized that when it's something that you want to learn, that you're interested in learning, I usually end up remembering like almost every single detail, right? But when it comes to forcing myself to learn something that I don't want to learn, right? I'm really, really bad at it. I can't remember anything, right? And it's just really, really painful, right? So ultimately, that's also what happened to me, right? When I was learning the information, when I was trying to soak it in, even though I was trying very hard, it was very difficult to learn that information because I just had no interest in learning it, okay? So yeah, guys, ultimately, right, you don't know what you're stepping into. You don't know what kind of a job you'll be doing. Um, you might get stuck with very repetitive work. You might get stuck in doing something that's that doesn't fulfill you at all, that doesn't challenge you mentally, right? You might be like a robot, basically, you know, and you might feel like, you might start feeling like one too, just by simply doing that work, that kind of work, right? And so yeah. So, I mean, I'm not saying that you guys will not learn anything, right? Of course you will, right? And that's good. I think most of us humans, we want to be challenged in some way, right? We want to learn new things. Learning new information, for example, makes us feel good. Once again, it releases certain hormones, right? Certain chemicals in our body that makes us feel good, right? That make us feel good. But ultimately, guys, every job has like a ceiling that you'll hit, okay? Where you can no longer really grow intellectually, or you won't be learning too many new things, right? So you'll get stuck, you won't feel as challenged. And if you're a very intelligent person, if you pick up on new things fast, maybe, right? Then you'll probably hit this ceiling fast sooner than later, and you'll start feeling very unfulfilled in your job. Yeah. So I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe. I'm gonna try to make more videos in the future, and of course I'm gonna talk about all kinds of different stuff. I hope you liked this video. I hope you learned a little something from it, and have a good day. Bye.